the math team here at St. Mark's in the Upper School. It's my pleasure this morning to present David Samuel Perkins, Sam, for his senior exhibition. I first got to know Sam as a sophomore when he was in my honors algebra 2 class. I've taught some pretty remarkable math students since I've been at St. Mark's, but Sam's the only one that I know of that put together a string of perfect tests, like 3 in a row, something ridiculous where he didn't miss a single point on the test for quite a few in a row. Which showed me at that point that Sam is a master of detail. And he's going to talk to you today about focus and detail within basketball. I've also been Sam's advisor these past 2 years for his junior and senior year. And gotten to know Sam in many other roles as well at St. Mark's. He's active in the Leadership and Ethics program at St. Mark's. He is the co-founder and serves as the co-chairman of the Leadership and Ethics Council. It's a group whose mission promotes ethical behavior and educates students in the art of leadership. He's also been selected this year to serve as the Telos Leadership Society. What grade do you work with?
8th graders.
With 8th graders, he monthly goes down to their advisories and discusses issues with them such as bullying and cheating, and how to act courageously in all situations, and what community service should mean to them, etc. He's been handpicked for these roles because he is held in such high esteem by the faculty members in the upper school. Other leadership positions Sam has taken: he was the senior auction co-chair, he was the president of the Political Forum and president of the Spanish Club, and he's also the managing editor of the yearbook, The Marksman, which takes up an immense amount of time and responsibility. This past season, Sam also was a starter on the varsity basketball team. And with all these things that he does outside of his classes, he still manages to make straight A's. When I wrote his rec in the fall, I went back and looked at his transcripts. He never received anything lower than an A- on any report card for any marking period from freshman year all the way through to the junior year. I don't know if I can say that. I don't remember if I can say that at this point in his senior year, but he's a remarkable young man. It's my pleasure. He's headed to Princeton in the fall.
Great.
It's my pleasure to introduce Sam Perkins.
So I'm here to talk all day about basketball and my experiences playing it. So, yeah, here we go. So I began playing basketball in the 3rd grade, and at that time it was really nothing more than another activity for me. We had a hoop in the backyard, and I'd occasionally go outside and shoot on it. But as I moved into middle school, I began going outside more, spending over an hour of most school nights just shooting the ball over and over. These nightly shooting sessions weren't really deliberate attempts at getting better for me, but rather my way of relaxing after a long day of school and home. I like the repetition of the shooting motion, and the outcome of my shots was becoming increasingly consistent. So as you might expect, by the time 7th grade rolled around, I was one of the better jump shooters in the grade. But I was still pretty short, as often see you. I often say we're pretty short. And I lacked the many other skills, dribbling, passing, and defending, that are required to be a solid basketball player. So because of this fault, I played on the B team under Coach Knight. There, 2 years later, a little more hair on that for both of my middle school seasons. So while at the time I was disappointed about not making the better team, those 2 seasons were crucial to my growth as a player. I couldn't make myself taller and more naturally athletic, so I decided I'd become the best at those skills that I could control. I committed myself to spending even more time in the backyard refining my jump shot, and began honing my passing and dribbling, skills that I need to best my athletically superior opponents. So as I moved into upper school, my confidence only increased. In a game especially dominated by those with height and athleticism, that I could succeed with neither of these attributes was a point of pride for me. I learned to play the game with my head rather than with my body. I outwitted opponents with trickery and craftiness. Ball fakes, no-look passes, high-arcing floaters over much taller defenders. These were my tools. During the winter of my junior year, I proved just good enough to make the varsity team. But playing behind more experienced and naturally gifted players, I earned very little playing time during the season and was once again frustrated. But instead of pouting about this lack of playing time, I used my mind to find other ways to contribute. I made a point of being vocal during practices and in games, as you can see in the picture there. And I was constantly trying to use my knowledge of the game to help us win, even if I couldn't contribute on the court during games. I watched films of the teams we were about to play and worked on game plans with Coach Guy there. always trying to deepen my understanding of the game. Simply. It was during this time that I really began to understand basketball on a scientific level. I started reading about statistics and data, and I began to learn about the math behind the game. So as an example of this math, let's do a little experiment here. So let's say I'm a 33% three-point shooter, okay? So that means if I take 3 shots, how many am I going to make? Okay? So in this experiment, I took 3 shots, made 1, so I got 3 total points, right? So I got 3 points, took 3 shots, so that's 1 point per shot, right? Going with me there? Alright. So next experiment, I'm taking 2-point shots. And let's say I'm a 50% 2-point shooter, okay? So if I take 2 shots, how many am I going to make? 1 also, right? So I got 2 points, took 2 shots, right? Same thing. 2 points per 1 point per shot also. Just keep that in mind. So here's an actual shot chart of all the shots taken in the NBA in a season a couple years ago. Okay? So here are the percentages shot on all the 3-point shots you can see around the arc, right? Those are well above what we just talked about of 33%. So on average, they got over 1 point per shot, right? That open? Alright. So now let's look at 2-point shots. And what percent do we need to shoot on 2-point shots? 50, right? So that's not as good, right? That's well below 50%, and it's really not that much higher than 33%. So it turns out it's way harder to shoot 50% on 2-point shots than it is to shoot 33% on 3-point shots, right? So does anyone have any guesses what the color on this means? Anyone say shot it?
Frequency? Oh, shoot.
Frequency? So frequency is actually the number of dots that appear. So that's close. Anyone else got a guess?
Points per shot.
Exactly. It's points per shot. So the red areas, right? The red and orange areas, you can see them down here, mean more points per shot and therefore a more efficient shot. Whereas the green areas are less efficient shots based on points per shot. So as it turns out, 3-point shots and shots around the rim are way more efficient than any shots that were 2 points but are still pretty far from the basket. Right? It seems kind of intuitive. So from that we can conclude that we want to shoot more 3-point shots and make the other team shoot more mid-range shots, right? Does that make sense? So that's what we use on the court to help us win, even though we were playing against teams that may have been better shooters. If we made them shoot 2-point shots and we shot 3-point shots, we could also lay one out on top. Here's another example of math we use to play basketball. So this really shows where a rebound goes if shot from that yellow spot right here. So this is a heat map. So the red spot indicates where it's most likely. A shot from there is most likely to land in this. So if we know that they shoot from here and we know where the ball's most likely to land here, I can go get a rebound even if I'm a little shorter because I know where it's most likely to go, right? So that's another advantage of having this kind of data. So moving on. All of these events led up to my senior season, which was the culmination of my basketball career. While I didn't grow significantly or increase my athleticism over the offseason, I was still able to play significant minutes and contribute this season because I played intelligently. I didn't commit turnovers, I chose the smart shots like we just talked about, and I was constantly ensured that I was in the right position on defense. The more I thought things through on the court, the more the game began to slow down for me and become easier. The sport showed me that the success I had was a direct result of my ability to think creatively and use my head to outsmart more naturally gifted opponents. So when I say use my head to outsmart more naturally gifted opponents, here's what I mean. So on this play, this is against ESD, some of y'all may have been there. I'm standing right here, right? And there's about 3 seconds left in the quarter. And I realized that there was no one behind me, right? So if I could just screen Williams, man, even though he's way bigger, if I could just slow down on half step, we're going to get a layup on the other end. And that wasn't something Coach Gallagher told me to do or anything. I just sort of realized that there was no one behind me and tried to take it into it. That's really exactly what happened. Y'all can see the other layup. Yeah. There you go. Right? It'll be a nice celebration at the end. So that's one example. Another example. This is against Green Hill, and this was the beginning of the third overtime of the game. So I realized that during the first 2 overtimes, this guy had one tip, and the ball was tipped right here. So I thought, if I can just get to that spot before my man does, we should be able to get the possession, and ultimately, that'll be crucial in the overtime game. So that's really what happened. Even though it was tipped twice, we got to it, and we ended up getting the ball and winning the game. So, and then this last one, you can see. Little teaser. That one was really This guy who I was guarding was getting frustrated because he had missed a few shots in a row. His coach was really getting on him. So he was frustrated. I figured if I could just get him to do something kind of brash, the referee would call it, and all I had to do really was set. So I just did a little acting job, and that ended up with us getting an extra possession. So we have a nice little replay here. So all I was had to do was jump a little there and sell it, and then we ended up hitting it. So that's what I mean when I say I try to play smart and stay creative. And that brings me to the end of my presentation, which comes to the question, so what, right? Why should you guys care about what I'm doing and playing basketball? I'm not really here to tell you should play basketball, but I'm here because I think you can learn from my experiences playing the game for the past decade. This presentation really isn't even meant to be about basketball. It's about perspective. Understand that there are so many different ways to approach something. Superficially, basketball is a game of athleticism and skill, right? But analytically, it's something completely different. Less like a sport and more like a puzzle or a math problem with many different solutions. I hope you'll take some time in the next few days to think about what you like. Classes, sports, instruments, whatever activity. Not what you're good at or what you think is cool, but what you are genuinely interested in and care about. I encourage you to find ways to not only pursue those activities, but truly gain a deeper understanding. Explore them passionately, both physically and mentally. Find those different perspectives I just talked about. I did, and the results could not be more evident. So that's the end of my presentation. If you all have any questions,
If you have a question, I'll ask you to please stand up so that the rest of us can hear you. Anybody want to ask Sam about basketball or like life or Bradley?
Do you plan to pursue basketball in college?
maybe on a club level, probably not as a varsity basketball player.
When did you realize you should start playing basketball analytically?
That really came my sophomore, junior season when I wasn't getting as much playing time as I wanted, so I was trying to find other ways to contribute and get better and get myself in that position. Anyone else? All right.
Not sponsored, do you have anything to say to something good?
Have a good lunch.
All right.
Thank you, boys.